Once again, good afternoon, Trinidad and Tobago. Just about 2 minutes after the hour of 1 o'clock. It is a very, very hot sunshine day here in Trinidad, one of my favorite weathers. And where Keron is at, I don't want to hear you talk about no food today, Keron. Every Friday, you just talk about your food arrive, and 2 o'clock in the morning, Thai time, you now going and have these wonderful, delicious dishes. You and I will fall out. Stop talking about the food that you'll be eating, eh? Nice. So we inside another edition of the Digital World. Of course, we got some guests in studio with us this afternoon as well, and it's back over to Keron in Thailand.
Davey, I will talk about all the food I want on my time.
All right, pal.
Anywho, listen, top of the hour, every single Friday, 12 p.m. to 3 p.m., Freedom 106.5 FM turns into the digital world with myself, Keron Rose. And we always have some amazing conversations. There's so many things that are happening in the digital world. And you know what it feels like every single week? 3 hours isn't even enough time to really break down all of the news and give it to you guys. But anyways, we have another exciting guest that has come on to the program today. We're going to be talking to Mr. Kris Granger. Kris is going to be coming in with us, and we're going to be talking all about his move from Trinidad to Sweden, what life abroad is like. Like I said, there are so many opportunities that are happening all across the world right now. We are no longer limited by geography. Whether you're getting into remote jobs, whether you are building your digital presence, your profile, and attracting opportunities from other countries, we are at a place in time where there really is no lack of opportunities. But we do need to learn how to navigate this digital age. If you are building a business and you want to learn how to market your business, Kris is one of the best people out there. We're going to be talking to him about how we can also, market our business in 2025. What are some of the things that to look into? So you don't want to miss this upcoming program. So before we bring on Kris, Kris is a distinguished marketing consultant and an award winning academic, currently serving as a digital marketing manager at Volvo Group out in Sweden. He is a global leader. No, Volvo is a global leader in sustainable transport solutions if you don't know who Volvo is. With over 15 years of experience, Kris specializes in designing and implementing creative digital marketing strategies that reach audiences worldwide while aligning with the company's vision for a safer and more sustainable future. Kris's impressive career has included leadership positions at renowned organizations such as Lonsdale, Saatchi and Saatchi Advertising, Ross Advertising, TTT Limited, and Creative TT. His expertise in digital marketing has led him to manage campaigns for esteemed clients such as the European Union in Sweden, Domino's Pizza, Brad PI, Carib, Nestle, Angus, Stura, and Shell. In addition to his work at Volvo, Kris is passionate about educating and empowering the next generation of digital marketers and entrepreneurs. He has shared his expertise through workshops and lectures across the Caribbean and Europe, helping businesses and NGOs build their digital presence and thrive in today's online economy. A few years ago, Kris made the bold move from Trinidad and Tobago to Sweden, gaining unique insights into cultural and professional landscapes of both regions. Today, we're going to be exploring Kris's incredible journey, the challenges that he has faced, and the lessons he has learned, as well as his thoughts on the evolving global landscape of digital marketing. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Mr. Kris Granger. Kris, how you doing, my brother?
What an introduction. I'm doing pretty good, man. It's cool. We're in a few different time zones. It's 6 p.m. where I am in Sweden, and it's been dark for a few hours. But I'm doing pretty good, man. It's Friday.
Listen, Friday, anytime it's Friday, it's always a good day. And you see, you made a good point already, right? We are operating across three different time zones right now. It is 1 p.m. in Trinidad, it's 6 p.m. by you, it is midnight by me. And all of this is possible because we are all tapping in to the digital age, the opportunities, utilizing the technologies. There really is no limitation of doing business and just attracting opportunities. And I mean, glad to have you. You have an incredible journey, and I really like the fact that you are in a different time zone. I want to have the Caribbean people and Trinbagonians get to see more of our people that are living in the diaspora, how they did it, what they're doing, what life is like abroad, because we don't always have, these perspectives that are coming in, especially on the radio. You know what I mean? So we have an hour. Thank you for your time, and let's really dive into it. So just to kind of start, talk to us about what was the motivation behind going over from Trinidad and Tobago to Sweden? Because again, that's a big jump. Usually when people leave from the Caribbean, we think of the three main ones: the US, Canada, the UK. Anything else is like, what are you doing out there? So what was the motivation like to get you over to Sweden?
It's no secret that I married a Swedish girl, but it's a little bit more.
Congrats.
Well, it's a little bit more complex than that.
Yeah.
When I at one of the I guess at a moment in my career, I was head of marketing
Hmm.
and communications at Creative TT,
Yeah.
and at the time, we were just building the brands for Music TT and Fashion TT, and we were rebranding the Trinidad and Tobago Film Company to Film TT.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was really learning a lot about the global music industry,
Yeah.
and really, I've always had a really great relationship with the music industry on the whole.
Yeah.
One of my best friend from secondary school into university, Mevo and Sudin, he's like becoming one of the top producers in Trinidad and Tobago now.
Wow.
Since we were teenagers, music was a really big part of my life. And as it
Yeah.
turned out, the girl that I was dating was a musician. She used to sing with Imogen Company, and she was
Wow.
half. So, and we were all living in Trinidad, and we were having a great time in Trinidad. But her career, where she wanted to take her career as a songwriter,
Yeah.
really we understood, and I was learning through my music TT relationship how much of a mecca for music Sweden really was. And we
Wow.
up until that point, I had really no idea that the entire pop, the entire pop Billboard 100, I mean, it's dominated by Swedish producers, Swedish songwriters. So, for example,
Wow.
everything from Baby One More Time, I Want It That Way, um, the entire pop movement in the late 90s, early 2000s, all the way up to collaborations with Taylor Swift and The Weeknd. I think a Swedish producer wrote I Can't Feel My Face. Um,
Wow.
Essentially the number one producer in the world is Max Martin. He's a Swedish producer.
Yeah.
Avicii, Dennis Pop, Swedish House Mafia. Um, the list goes on about
Yeah.
the behind the scenes experience of what's going on in Sweden for music. So
Yeah.
Sweden, especially in production and songwriting,
Yeah.
and we as a couple made the decision that she should go back to Sweden and I would follow at some point so that
Yeah.
she could get her music network and collaboration opportunities going.
Yeah.
And that's important to note, especially when people are thinking about leaving. A lot of people ask me, how do you move to Sweden? It's not a switch for me. It was never a switch. I worked at Creative TT in 2015 when
Yeah.
Sweden really came on my radar, and I
Yeah.
moved to Sweden in 2020. So I first
Mm.
visited in 2015 on vacation, then a little longer vacations, and so it was
Yeah.
a 5 year
Gradual.
journey. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Of working, getting to know people, because you don't really just it's really never that simple. I mean, maybe Thailand is a bit a bit more simple. I don't know. But
I think it's different just because of careers. Like if you're like I'm 100% digital, it's a lot easier to be 100% digital and move to a lot of countries that are really opening up for digital nomads than people who are trying to get employment within the country. That's two totally different
yeah,
paths. But yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah. So that was the inspiration
Yeah.
was music. It was music, and of course Sarah was Swedish. So
Yeah.
we decided to make the move, and that certainly is one avenue that allowed me to work and live in Sweden. Um,
Yeah.
many, many avenues that allow people to work and live in Europe.
Yeah.
There are digital nomad visas. There are
Yeah.
opportunities through going to school. You can also, if you have a capital investment in many countries in Europe, you can create a business with that capital investment, and that business opens you to residency opportunities as well. So there are lots of
Yeah.
opportunities for people to legally move to Sweden
Yeah.
and or any part of Europe. And for that matter, lots of people also don't know that on a Trinidadian passport, you can visit Europe, you can visit Sweden for up to 3 months and stay. So you don't need to
Mm,
come in, or that the days of applying for a Schengen visa are gone. We have free access to Sweden. So
yeah.
there are lots of opportunities to come and explore.
Yeah.
Um, and so I when I moved to Sweden, it was gradual. I had after Creative TT, I went to TTT and then Ross Advertising for a little while. And after Ross, what I sort of started doing was building my own brand
Yeah.
a lot more so that I could, I guess, continue to have some sort of digital income, which would
Yeah.
buffer me from Trinidad into Sweden. So
Yeah.
I linked up with Domino's Pizza, and I was doing some work with Antigua Commercial Bank and a number of different clients. I
Yeah.
linked up with Volvo Group, and we created this brand called Voosh. I don't know if any of y'all use it, but really
Mhm.
cool delivery service. Um, and I took my clients and I moved. I came
Mhm.
across, it was just, I said 2020, so it was the year of the pandemic,
Yeah.
which I guess serendipitously it worked well for me because everybody was moving into online meetings. I I
Mm. By
I
force.
Yes, exactly. So it just worked super well. The timing was perfect. So nobody missed the fact that I wasn't showing up. And at that time, I had been teaching at Arthur at GSB for a few years, and those
Yeah.
classes had moved into online right
Yeah.
at the same time, so it worked. I was also teaching at UTT and doing some stuff with Nedco, so I had
Yeah.
a lot of opportunity to use the income I was getting in Trinidad to sort of buffer
Yeah.
me in Sweden. And I think and I'm sharing that because that's a model that people can think of, because it takes a little while to be able to grow a network enough to have an income that pays the bills in a new country. That's a really significant move
Absolutely.
that really has to happen. So I had to build an effective digital foundation in Trinidad and throughout the Caribbean so that I can move. So that's
Yeah.
really the beginning of my journey. And my very first client, after a while, and I'll tell you, I'll just take you to my first
Yeah. Yeah.
client. In Europe, once I started once I started here, the first thing I did, you would find this interesting, is I started an acting class. And
Okay.
not because I have like an acting ambition, although I think
Yeah.
I'm quite, but I started acting class because my friends in Trinidad, where it's people in Woodbrook, it's people in arts, it's people in media. These are my friends in Trinidad. So I felt as though if I want to build community here, I would want to build community with people like me, people who
Yeah.
also like arts. And what better than an amateur acting class?
Yeah.
So I I did this amateur acting class, and Keron, I tell you, it was the best decision that I could have made moving here, because
Wow.
that opened me up to, and I was very open in that class that I was here to make friends. And that
Yeah.
opened me up to friendships that I still have, but also importantly, friendships that led to business opportunities. So
Mm.
there was this lady who was also in the acting class, older than me.
Yeah.
And she came one day and said that the company she was working for was looking for extras for a film that they were shooting. Is anybody interested? They're paying 100 crowns. That's less than 100 TT, by the
Wow.
way. And I said, yeah, sure, let's do it. And I went to the shoot, and it just so happened that was a shoot for the European Union. The communications manager was on site, and we got the talking. Trini's talking to her,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
interested in talking to me. And I was just telling her that, I'm a marketer, and it's sort of difficult to be able to break into a new market, and I'm so open to volunteer opportunities. And I said, I'd be happy to help you out. I'm quite good at what I do.
Yeah.
So if there's anything you need some help with, I'm your guy. And
Yeah.
she, you know what? There is a project coming up, and I have to host this huge event across Europe on Zoom, and I have no idea how to do it. So can you come and manage a multi-room experience in Zoom? Now, of course, I'm here, and I would do it for free.
Yeah.
And she said, no, I could pay you something. But, it was that conversation that
Yeah.
opened me
Yeah.
up, gave me the opportunity to do a little, to show my skills
Yeah.
with them, show my professionalism, show them things they didn't know. And that turned into a longer term contract so that I could actually call the European Union a client for a little while and do it.
Wow.
And that changed everything. That changed everything. From that point on, they then, after my contract was up with them, they then recommended that they sent a glowing recommendation letter to the agency, where I went on to another contract opportunity to be a
Yeah.
digital strategist, and that agency had all of the Volvo companies as their client. So there I was, now in a position that I'm doing digital strategies for Volvo construction equipment, Volvo Penta, Volvo cars, Volvo trucks, Volvo Group. And I did that for a year.
Yeah.
And then I got hired by Volvo. And so
Wow.
it really started with with the acting class, and saying yes to almost free opportunities, just
Yeah.
yes.
Yes. Yes.
And then moving into being humble enough to offer my services for free, and showing up as the competent Trinidadian that I am. And Trinis, we're very good at what we do. I love Trinidadian.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
showing up in my Trinidadianness, and just every day doing well. And that landed me this opportunity, and there's no telling what's going to come next, Keron. Yes, Volvo, working at Volvo Group headquarters in Sweden is sweet and it's beautiful, and I must say it's a great working experience, and I have a lot to say about that as well.
Yeah.
But I'm still at the beginning. This is my fourth year. In July it would be 5 years that I'm here.
Yeah.
There's a lot more. I'm still very ambitious. There's still a lot that I want to do. So we'll see what this foundation that I'm building really is.
And this is why we're having these conversations, because we have so many people that are in the diaspora in some really amazing positions, doing great, bringing with them all of their expertise, their knowledge. And it's a big cultural exchange as well. That being said, because even with me in Thailand, like just a lot of the conversations that I have with a lot of the local Thai people, again, there's just a huge cultural exchange that's happening. With you moving to Sweden, what was like your first thoughts of, life full time in Sweden? Like you were visiting, and when you visit, it's always different than when you actually move. So like when you move, like, what were some of the changes that you kind of went through, some of the things that you noticed?
Yo, I'll tell you, Sweden is polar opposite to Trinidad.
Mhm.
And I've watched this documentary called The Swedish Theory of Love, and they really define exactly how different Sweden is. So there's this concept on that Swedish Theory of Love that talked about countries that are where countries where they believe God is great,
Yeah.
and opposite end of the spectrum, countries where they believe God is dead. And
Mhm.
usually it's correlated with the weather. So the
Yeah.
coldest countries believe God is dead, and the warmest countries believe God is great. So of
Yeah.
course it's clear where Trinidad lands on that spectrum. Trinidad,
God is Trinity.
exactly. God is not only great,
He's a Trinity.
God is a Trinity. And Sweden is the single country in the world that is on the complete opposite of that spectrum. Most people in Sweden are atheists. God is dead.
Wow.
And so from from a religious standpoint, that's one major difference. And think about what religion does to a community.
Yes.
In Trinidad, we're extremely community oriented, extremely family oriented, multi-generational homes, neighbors who are in your business, or lots of solid community. In Sweden can be easily described as quite an individualistic society. Most
Yeah.
people who live in Sweden live alone. That's a fact. People
Yeah.
live in single unit apartments. So moving from spaces where things are multi-generational to spaces where people really live in an independent manner where there's a lot more reliance on the government. Sweden is
Yeah.
truly a socialist country where all of your health needs, all of your education needs are really supported at a really high level.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the foundation for the difference in the way people behave. And one of the first things I noticed with that difference is when
Yeah.
I step to the bus in Sweden and I say good morning,
Yeah.
nobody looks up. No, and if they do look up, they're like, it's crazy, man. It's crazy black good morning to people. And I at first thought, well, that's the Swedish people are rude. Why aren't they
Rude.
saying good morning back to me?
Yeah.
But so it's just one way that it manifested. In fact, I learned later on, or pretty early
Yeah.
on, that it's almost rude to interrupt someone and say good morning to them if you have
That's
nothing to.
insane.
Yeah, if you have nothing to say, why am I interrupting you? Most of the time, the people are listening to their podcast or they're listening to their music, and they don't want to
Yeah.
be interrupted. They're in their world, they're on their routines, and so that's a huge difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Another interesting difference is that Swedish people they have quite kind people once
Yeah.
you could get past the prickly outer part of the pineapple.
Yeah.
The pineapple is
Yeah.
inside, but prickly on the outside.
Yeah.
And many Swedish people have their friendships from kindergarten. They grow up in their
Yeah.
neighborhood. They go to the same kindergarten, the same school, the same high school, and they keep very, very, very close friends their entire
Yeah.
life. And it's very difficult for outsiders to get into social circles, especially in deep and meaningful ways. As
Yeah.
compared to Trinis, we're a lot more open. We're a lot
Yeah.
more come over and live, and it's a
Yeah.
lot
Yeah.
more welcoming in that regard to new people and to strangers. So that was a major barrier, and something that I must emphasize is I think that's true about a lot of Northern and Central Europe, that people they keep their social circles for a long time, and it's difficult to break in. And
Yeah.
we know that social circles are required to be able to get you jobs and get you opportunities. So it's
Yeah.
not just hard to make friends, it's hard to do anything that involves people and networking. So you have to be really aggressive, not aggressive, but imaginative and
Yeah.
open. Um, as I said, like the volunteering and the working for
Yeah.
free.
Yeah.
Those are the ways that you get in, because it's not really going to be easy for you to gain the trust of the social circle of someone in Sweden who has, they have dinners with
Yeah.
their only and exclusively those friends that they've had for 20 years. So
Wow.
those were some of the challenges I had to navigate, I think.
No, and those are some really good challenges that you brought up, right? Now, one of the things that we always hear about Sweden is that Sweden's one of the happiest countries in the world. So when you were like, you know how they have that survey of the happiness index,
That survey, yeah.
the happiness index, and we always see that a Nordic country is usually top of the list, and Sweden is always in the top 5. So like last year, Sweden was ranked 4th in the world behind the neighbors of Denmark and Finland, but Sweden was ranked 4th in the world. When you hear these things again, when you're not living in the country and like, oh my God, Sweden's 4th in the world, everybody's walking around saying hi to everybody.
Yeah.
So what is it like? What is it like, your experience? You see a server like that, it's fourth in the world happiness, and you're on the ground, Do you see the correlation?
Right. So when you said that, my eyebrows hit the ceiling, and just for those listening, uh, um, and so let me give the full spectrum, and I'll start with the dark side of Sweden, the literal dark side of Sweden, meaning the sun rose this morning at about 8:30 a.m.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, yeah, and then it set at about 3:45 p.m.
Oh, no.
And in between, it was gray all day, totally gray, so dark, and the kind of weather where people drive with their lights on, and wet and rainy,
Yeah.
um, and gloomy. And they say if I don't take my vitamin D, I'll get depressed. And the statistics for depression in Sweden are also alarmingly high. The statistics for SSRI or antidepressant prescriptions in Sweden are also quite high.
Wow.
And so there is a serious mental health, um, I guess, a keen mental health awareness in Sweden because of
Yeah.
the weather and the cold and that sort of thing. That's a real issue.
Yeah.
However, on the other side of things, Sweden is quite a rich country, a rich, wealthy country.
Yeah.
So the healthcare system works exceptionally well.
Yeah.
The education system is really good. People, you actually get the I want to say this correctly, but you get paid to go to school at master's level, at PhD level. PhD
Wow.
position are actual positions, so you apply to the
Yeah.
position and you get a salary. So there's
Wow.
no pay to go to school. It's the other way around.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of vacation. So
Yeah.
it's sort of built in that everyone sort of standard vacation is 4 to 5 weeks a year. And
Yeah.
then and then on top of that, nobody, absolutely nobody works during summertime, the months of summer.
Oh,
So
wow.
the largest company in Sweden is Volvo, which is a
Yeah.
manufacturing company, Sweden is run by many manufacturing companies, Saab included. Um, and during summertime, the factories shut down. And so it's sort of become cultural that the school is out, parents are out, everyone is out from between July to August. It's just it's the holidays. People leave.
Yeah.
Christmas time, it's the holidays. Nobody's working through Christmas and nobody's working through summer. It's just that, and that took me a little while to understand. Uh,
Wow.
and because that was a big deal, and I think it's things like that. So
Yeah.
at some time, the joy that you see on people's faces, everyone is dressed nicely, they're going out, the bars are full, the restaurants are full, people are sunbathing in every part of the everywhere. So summertime in Sweden is a really, really beautiful and happy time. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Yeah, really beautiful and happy time. And I think that it has to do not just with the weather, but with that system of vacation that lots of people
Yeah.
go on vacation. And of course, I think the taxes are very, very high in Sweden. People pay, I mean,
Yeah.
I pay almost 50% of my salary in tax.
Jeez.
Tell me about it. And yeah, it's really, really, really high. When I
Yeah.
looked at budget, Keron, our life is very different. but 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 the good thing is, I mean, I've been pretty open about my health journey as well. I
Yes.
survived cancer, in
Yes.
and the hospital experience that I had here. I mean, I paid nothing. I paid nothing for chemotherapy, and I mean, we're talking very, very expensive medication where people are, funding. What I mean, I had to pay for my mother to travel back and forth to come and help support
Yeah.
me, but the experience was luxury, to be truthful. My hospital
Wow.
experience was really, really fantastic. They treated me so well. The nurses were so kind, and they all knew me. I still go to the hospitals to
Yeah.
because I'm still under controls. um
Yeah.
they ask, Kris, how are you? You look so good. So there is a real, when it comes to the government administration, that shit works. Sorry for saying shit. Sorry. that
Yeah.
that works. So
Yeah.
there is a comfort in the mind of the Swedish person that their tax dollars are taking care of them. They trust the government and they trust the systems. So I think that that has a lot to do with the happiness. And of course, the financial system
Yeah.
is really flawless and quick and easy. Everything is online. There's a lot of everything works. Things things
Yes.
things work. Um, and this is what, of course, this is what we want for the Caribbean, Keron. This is what people like
Exactly.
I are working towards, getting people to realize how to push us forward and what things we should take and should not take. Pushing the Caribbean forward has been my mantra for many years. So, and I consistently applaud you for the work you're doing, the no nonsense kind of conversations that you're having about where we should be in Trinidad, when it comes to that. But yeah, Sweden is quite happy, but it's not as simple as that. As I said,
Yes.
there's
Yes. And again, no, again, this is why we're having the conversations, because it's these perspectives that we need. I mean, not everybody can leave Trinidad and go and live and experience another country. I try to tell people, if you can, if you get the opportunity to go and live anywhere outside of the US, the UK, can't, like, go live somewhere where you can get some perspective, you can see a different culture, you can see how things work. Like, one of the things that I always do is I'm always looking at how are they doing marketing in these different countries. When you go, what's catching your attention? What stands out? Like, you're always looking to see how these things are working in different places, because these are the things you can now take back and bring back into the region. If you are not leaving the island whatsoever, you don't get to see how some of these things are actually working in person. So I encourage everybody who can, once you have a passport, get out, go see how things are working in your industry in another country. That being said, Kris, the one of the biggest culture changes that people tend to go through when leaving the Caribbean is in the corporate space. How was the transition of going from corporate in Trinidad to going to corporate in Sweden?
um so I had the pleasure of working. I volunteered with TEDx, so I worked with an NGO in effect, for a little while. I worked at a content agency, so effectively an ad agency. So I had the
Yeah.
opportunity to be on the outside of it in with my agency experience, and then now I'm working in Volvo's corporate headquarters. Um, and and well, you read out my Trinidad experience as well. So one of the biggest differences in the way we do business, in the way we operate business in Trinidad and Sweden, is uh the way decisions are made.
Yeah.
So in Trinidad, what I have found is, for the most part, you have a CEO, you have heads of department who are is really the key decision makers. The head of department is expected to be the main subject matter expert, and is empowered to take a decision. And usually, culturally, we would take those decisions as
Yeah.
managers, and people follow our rule. Um, Sweden is very consensus based as a society, and that shows up
Hmm.
in the corporate walls. There's a lot of what we jokingly say, decision by committee.
Hmm.
So my senior vice president would very easily be found making a decision based on everybody in the room having an opinion. So
Hmm.
you feel there is a great sense of person equality. You
Yeah.
really, there's a great respect for everyone's voice. And it's really important because, one of the things at Volvo is an innovation company. And one of the things at
Yeah.
Volvo, we understand very clearly, is that innovation is faster and better when there is diversity.
Yeah.
And So, which is why that's the main reason why we're pushing all of this diversity conversation, and also accessibility, diversity, gender diversity, every type of cultural diversity.
Yeah.
And diversity only works when everyone is heard.
Yeah.
So if you want the innovation to happen, every perspective, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert or a man or a woman or from Somalia or from Denmark,
Yeah.
there is a desire to have everyone contribute, so that the best decision can be made. And I think that in as much as Trinidad is very, very good when it comes to the diversity of cultures and the celebration of each other's festivals and that sort of thing. It's very it's quite it could be quite common that you are in a team and you're not heard. So
Right.
that I think is a big deal. No matter how junior or how senior you are, you're usually part of the decision making
Yeah.
in a organization. Another thing is in a great respect for people's time and people's mental health in Sweden.
Wow.
I've worked at 3 ad agencies in Trinidad and 1 in
Yeah.
Sweden.
Yeah.
And in my 3 ad agency experience, and I've worked at every level, junior account
Yeah.
exec, senior account exec, division head. And we have a culture, and it's something I myself have honed inside of me, and I'm changing this
Yeah.
culture of glorifying high performance and glorifying the grind and having all of this work to do. And I remember, you work at an agency, it's very easy for you to work 12 hours a day. Super, super
Easy.
easy.
Yeah.
For work to just be piling up on you. And you just have it's just okay.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's just okay that you are working 150% of the day. And if there's more, you just have to do it, and you're loved for that. In Sweden, I remember the first time the agency head came to me and said, Kris, do you have any time to do this? And I was just, that question just blew my mind. What if I have any time? Don't I have to do it? No, no,
No, for
no.
real.
Yeah, if you have time, what is your schedule looking like? Do you have any hours during the day that you can put towards this? And that simple question is it's just a question that no one had ever asked me
Ever
before.
asked before. Yeah.
In my career, do you have time to get this done? And that is a huge mindset shift. It's huge, and it sounds simple, but it's huge for your mental health. It's huge for your ability to produce quality work. um it was a big corporate difference, and that moved on into Volvo as well. People are constantly or consistently aware of what percentage of my calendar am I utilizing, because I can only give 85 to 100%. I cannot give you 110% because that's now moving into my family time or my
Wow.
personal, and that's more important than this by far. I think everyone on the entire corporate ladder is keenly aware that your personal time, your time for the gym, your time for yoga, your time to take a walk in the woods, and your time to spend with your family, that is the most important thing. And so you're aware. You can ask anyone at
Yeah.
any point in time, what capacity do you have? How
Yeah.
much percentage are you working on right now? When it gets very serious, it's like, okay, so I'm working on this for 20% and this for 80%. People are really, really clear on how much time they're spending with work, because work
Wow.
is really just a job. I think most people don't identify with their careers in Sweden in the way that we do in the States and in the
Yeah,
Caribbean.
correct. Oh, yeah, yeah. That's
People
our
identify.
identity in the West.
Yeah, exactly. And for sure, that's been my identity. Chris and marketing have been synonymous for many years. And
Yeah.
so I'm now breaking away from that. Now I'm learning that at the same time that I have a daughter. I have a 2-year-old daughter now.
Yeah.
And this was the first, and I tell you, Keron, this Christmas was the first Christmas that I have taken vacation in my career. I took
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
and this summer coming will be the first summer that I take vacation. I'm gonna take the whole vacation and spend it with my kid. And it's like it's so it didn't take anything from me. I could still come home for carnival if I and
Yeah.
if I
Yeah,
need to.
yeah, yeah.
It didn't take anything from me. It But what it did is that, my daughter had to stay home from school. Her mother had to work, or well, her mother chose to work because she was just going back out from maternity leave. And
Yeah.
I was so excited to say, well, it's me. I'll stay home. I'll stay home and get to know my kid, get to know my daughter and have her get to know me. And I think, if I was in Trinidad, I might not have had that luxury or that mindset or that
Yeah.
opportunity just spend every day in and day out with my daughter. That's another thing that I think keeps people happy. So the family is at the center of the corporate world. I had a
Right.
meeting. We had a new constellation of a team today, and we spent about 2 hours with PowerPoint presentations talking about our families.
Yeah.
I I actually
Wow.
that this
Wow.
yeah. So this is managers across the Volvo Group, and we're coming together to get to know each other. And everyone came with pictures of their children and pictures of their spouses and fiancés and pictures of them skiing and hiking, and that it's so very important. And the last thing I would say is there is a Swedish meeting before a meeting. That is it. And this was a major cultural shift for me as well. The meeting before the meeting is a mandatory 5 minutes where you just ask someone how you're doing. We're not gonna get into work until I ask you about your wife or your daughter or your how's sports going, or how's your coaching going on the weekends, or whatever. It's very, very nice actually that every meeting with Swedes you can count on that 5 minutes where they're going to ask you how are you really. And
Wow.
so that's pretty. So those are some interesting differences. And I'm not saying that everything. I mean, there's a lot of frustration that I get from this
Yeah.
consensus by committee. I'm
Yeah.
sometimes I
Yeah.
feel take a little too long to get to decisions. Sometimes I feel like okay, well, we have to postpone this meeting again because little Bobby had chicken pox. But and that's something that you just have to be part of. Things take a bit longer, so it's give and take. You have to sacrifice
Yeah.
something,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but those are some differences.
How has this helped you with building or reshaping like your work-life balance? Because it's a big mindset shift and it's such a challenge shedding 30 plus years of programming. you know so you being placed in this environment, and learning everything that you have been learning, how has this really helped you kind of just create that kind of work-life balance?
Well, coming from a God is great country, I'll start by saying a lot has happened with me that has
Mhm.
changed who I am in the last four
Yeah.
years. Um, I had stage 4 lymphoma, which was
Wow.
associated with high inflammation levels, which were associated with high cortisol levels, associated with high stress. And
Wow.
prior to being diagnosed um, with cancer, I was diagnosed with anxiety, with chronic anxiety
Yeah.
and burnout. So I was seeing a psychologist for a little while, and I was diagnosed with
Yeah.
burnout because, as I explained, I was doing a number of things in Trinidad, a lot of work in Trinidad, and also trying to build my career in Sweden, and also navigating the the weather and the
Yeah.
changes in culture and everything. And I was expecting a baby.
Whew.
And and so I was under a lot of pressure. And the way that I have always dealt with pressure is grinding my fingers to the bone. And I used to,
Mm.
as I remember saying to myself, saying for many years, I've said, I have no problem grinding my fingers to the bone. I will type on my keyboard until my fingers bleed if I have to, because I will get the job done. And that
Yeah.
was who I was as a person. Um, and that attitude God made me leave that in Trinidad because I obviously
Wow.
it really, really it almost killed me. And then
Literally.
it literally almost killed me. And then um moving into from that into becoming a parent. Now all of my everything changes when you become a parent. I personally really didn't realize how much of so many things change,
Yeah.
including myself. And I my priority became a lot more about being a present parent, and of course, recognizing that my daughter almost lost her dad.
Yeah.
It's something that I keep in the forefront of my mind a lot.
Yeah.
Um, and it's yes, of course, I want to work hard and give my daughter inheritance and those types of things. But what is most important is that I give her a secure attachment to her father, so that when she
Yeah.
moves in life, gets older in life, she has solid relationships with men or whoever she wants to be with, and that I do my part in building the foundation for this human being and protecting. She is an extremely beautiful little girl, and protecting her um, uh, uh, as best as I can, and being with her. So that's another component of what has
Yeah.
shifted. And so it's really that triangle of my own mental health, my responsibility as a father, and then the enabling environment that is Sweden that encourages me to chill out. And what does that look like? It when before I was sick, my work day would begin 5:30. I would get up and open my laptop
Yeah.
before I put on the coffee. And that like that's how that and it would go, and the laptop would stay on open functioning in multiple tabs. Sometimes it's multiple laptops, all day straight up till 10 p.m. That is, I
Yeah.
mean, that is many of us can identify with that.
Absolutely.
You have many engines running, you have many clients, many things, and you're just cutting up your time and just going, and it's something you can be proud of.
Yeah.
Now no, that doesn't happen. Now, on Sundays, for example, my laptop isn't open at all. On Sun
Wow.
on Sundays, that's the day that my daughter has my attention 100%, no matter what, reliably. On other days when I have her, if I'm picking her up from school, once she's in my presence, my laptop is closed. I'm not working. The only time I would have my phone in my hand is if I'm taking a picture of her. And
Yeah.
that if she's looking at pictures of herself, um um my mantra of parenthood is being a present parent 100%. So
Yeah.
she crashed into my work life. um and I still do projects. I don't
Yeah.
have clients in that regard, but I do a different type of projects now. I recently launched a meditation series on my YouTube page, with my
Congrats.
yeah. And I just did that because meditation has really helped me, and I thought I should
Yeah.
do this, make it public, and I don't
Yeah.
like I don't promote it extremely a lot. It's not about that. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
there. If
Yeah.
you want to use a 5-minute meditation, it's available. And I worked with University of Gothenburg, and I launched something called the Strategic Seven, which I will put a little bit more effort into on my LinkedIn page soon.
Yeah.
The 7 strategic models that you must know if you're a corporate marketer.
Yeah.
So I'm working with Stefan Rampasad, Phoenix Pro, and
Mhm.
we're going to launch a website and a learning environment for marketers who want to do that. But it's slow going.
Yeah.
He sent me his part a couple of weeks ago, and I messaged him this afternoon and said, I promise you this weekend I'm diving back into it. I promise. And
Yeah.
I still teach at Lockjack. I still,
Yeah.
there's still stuff that's happening, but it's just slower. It's a lot slower. If it can't happen today, it will happen next week. And I think that sort of maturity and degree of wisdom came from, as I said, that three-pronged approach of mental health, parenting, and the Swedish lifestyle.
I'm so glad you said everything that you did because this is why we're having these conversations to get this perspective. Because even when I look at my journey, I, for my entire life, I've worked hard. When I came from Canada to Trinidad, I realized I still work hard, but I don't work Canada hard. Like the workload and what I would do in Toronto, completely different. I worked hard in Trinidad. And now that I've left Trinidad, I've come over to Thailand. I don't even work as hard as I did in Trinidad. Like
Yeah.
I still work hard, but the thing is that in Thailand they have a cultural saying called sabai sabai. And to me, that's the English version of Hakuna Matata. Everything, whatever will be kind of vibe, right? Just go with the flow. Everybody's kind of chill. Nobody's in a rush. And even in the 4 months that I've been here, I've been going through just a detox period where I just don't, things are just not as responsive. Like I just take my time. And in just taking my time, I don't feel stressed. I
Yeah.
don't feel that anxiety coming back because when I left Canada, I started to feel like I was getting anxiety. Over the last 2 years, I've kind of felt like, is this anxiety kind of creeping back in because there's just a lot? We're living in a very charged environment with
Yeah.
everything that's happening right now in TNT. And so just coming to a complete new environment where, again, everything is a lot more laid back. It's a Buddhist culture. You know, no one's raising their voice. Heck, I learned this week the reason why nobody honks their horn in Thailand is because it's considered rude. Like
Yeah.
that's literally fighting words. Like you only honk when you actually want to fight. And since nobody wants to fight, nobody honks their horn. It's a very chill environment. So I'm just going through that detox period. But for what you just broke down, these are the things that, people, will never know unless they actually live in some of these countries. You could visit, but you'll never pick up on a lot of these things. It's when you are there long term, you start to realize those changes. Now, that being said, it's Sweden. Is there a language barrier that you had to kind of overcome in order to integrate fully, or do a lot of people there speak English? Because language barriers another reason why Caribbean people don't leave the U.S., the U.K., Canada, and they don't consider any other countries to potentially move to.
Yeah. Well, interestingly, Sweden is unique in that almost 100% of Swedish people speak English.
Oh, that's
Uh,
very good.
Yeah, it's really, really good. I mean, which I think is a really great model for us to learn because in Trinidad, we want to move towards being more bilingual with Spanish. And Sweden would be a really good model to follow. How did the
Hmm.
education system create an environment where everyone is bilingual? So everyone
Yeah,
is bilingual, which means that I was able to move through society pretty simply, but
yeah,
to relationships, people want to speak in their mother tongue.
yeah,
So it's not it's when you're having a drink with someone or and people get drunk or they want to really just be themselves, they want to speak their language.
yeah,
So there are levels of society. You can get by with English
yeah,
because everyone speaks English. But if you want to really have deep relationships with people, it helps a lot to learn the language, and that also matters in the corporate world because I made an observation that everyone above me at Volvo speaks Swedish. The
yeah,
the 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 rooms higher than me are that's happening in Swedish because it's a
yeah,
Swedish company. So if
yeah,
I'm if
yeah,
I want to grow in my career, if I want to grow in my relationships, the language is going to help. But I want to say that Sweden is quite welcoming to English speakers in that regard. You can have a vacation in Sweden and never
yeah,
need to speak Swedish ever. You can live here
yeah,
for a little while, depending on how ambitious you are. So
yeah,
Sweden in particular is a great place for people in Trinidad to consider because it's open. You can come with your passport, um, and you speak English. Now the street signs and stuff are in Swedish. So
yeah.
when I
Thank
mean
God
learning,
for Google Translate.
learning to drive in Sweden because I had to get my driver's license in Sweden.
Yeah,
I have never failed a test really in my life. I'm just
yeah,
I failed that the driving regulation. I failed it like 5 times. Like I failed it so many times. It was so hard.
yeah,
And so I've done a few years of Swedish classes. So
yeah,
I would say that I can speak basic Swedish, but I need to. I'm a bit spoiled. The official language of Volvo is English because we're an international company. So I
Yeah.
work in English. And all of my friends, most of my friends are now the friend group that I've made are quite mixed. I have
Yeah.
Italy and friends from different parts of Europe.
Yeah.
So English is a language that I speak when I'm liming as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, the language. If it was maybe Spain or a country that less people speak English,
Yeah.
it might have been I might have been forced to learn faster
Yeah.
I've been able to do that. But in Sweden, it's quite it's not you're not forced to learn the language.
Okay, okay, well, that's good. My last question before we tap into some of the marketing questions I have for you is what are some of the most valuable lessons from Sweden, both personally or both personally and also from a corporate perspective? What are some key lessons that you've learned that you wish you could take back to Trinidad that we could implement, both like on a personal level and then also like what you have been seeing in the business space.
Um, just off the top of my head, on a personal level, I mean, we in Trinidad, we have really great nature. We have
Yeah,
great beaches, great waterfalls, and many of us go. We go, not a lot of us, many of us go and enjoy the nature.
yeah,
I think if you ask any Swedish person what's their favorite thing to do, 9 out of 10, if not 10 out of 10, will say, I love to walk in nature. Like and it's so real how much they love nature, how much they
yeah,
respect nature. I remember going
yeah.
out in the woods with a friend, and there was some plastic on the ground and he picked it up. He picked it up. He picked it up in his pocket because it doesn't belong.
Yeah.
There's a real respect for the grounding element, the grounding capabilities or possibilities that happen inside of nature. There is a lot more tree hugging. There is a lot of just let's go and roast. Even if it's cold, and I'm not doing that. I'm not going out into the woods. So friends, so my friend yesterday, just this week he asked me, he said, we're gonna go take a dip in the ocean on Sunday. You wanna come? What? It's winter, bro. No, no, I'm not going to dip in 0 degrees water. It's like, yo, boy, it's so refreshing. It's like no, so they really like that. Like they really, really
Yeah,
respect nature, and
yeah,
they really like it. And what comes to mind right away, I guess, in a sort of a bridge between home life and corporate life is
yeah,
recycling. How we deal with garbage. It on a home personal level, everyone is keenly aware of how your actions impact the planet.
yeah,
That's it shows up. Every single household has a recycling bin, meaning you have your people deal with their own plastics, paper, um, and bottle,
yeah,
glass. Every household and every apartment building has a sorting station where you can sort your recycling. There's sorting stations all over the country. The office has sorting things. So you go to the office and you all of your recycling is managed, and it's not something that anybody has to reinforce. It's something we understand here in Sweden that like if you treat the plastic like food garbage, then
yeah,
the plastic is then you're contributing to poor environment. It impacts the oceans, it impacts the
yeah,
Caribbean. People are very aware of
yeah,
climate change and how their personal actions impact climate change. And that's something that I think we in Trinidad, who are in the Caribbean, where
yeah,
we stand to be very affected by the effects of climate change. And yet, we are ourselves not thinking about our personal actions and how it impacts the climate. There's so much littering. I driving in Trinidad, I want to scream at people who throwing things out their car window. Like how silly, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
Um, that's something that's pretty Those are two things that come to mind right off the top of my head.
No, and those are two pretty big ones. And there's something about just walking through clean cities where you just feel like a weight off of your shoulder. Like it just feels good to just take a stroll down the street. Thailand, for the most part, is very clean as well. Like they are always taking care of trash. You don't see litter just on the ground. Same thing. We have recycling, trash, pretty much everywhere you go, and nobody just goes and throws, garbage on the ground. But again, when you're walking through the parks, you're walking through the cities, as busy as these places are, it's like the cleanest city I've been. And Bangkok has been the most visited city for 2024. So you get volume. And it always amazes me how quiet Bangkok is for so many people that are here, but how clean it is. And again, you're just taking your walks and you really just aren't stressed. You don't feel grimy, and all those things kind of contribute to your mood as well, right?
Yeah.
Now,
The air is clean.
yeah, well, not in Bangkok. For you.
Okay. Yeah, the air is clean. It's really, and that has a lot to do with how well we take care of nature as well, because the trees
Yes.
so it's a lot of that. Yeah.
Yes, no, absolutely, absolutely. And those are some key points that I really wish that we could implement in Trinidad. Now, on the marketing front, right? So we got the perspective of life abroad. On the marketing front, 2025, we have a lot of businesses who have no idea where they should be focusing, what is important for 2025. So when you're looking at a lot of the things, because I mean, it's January 25th, and I felt like in the marketing world this month, we've lived like 6 different lives already. Is TikTok coming? Is it going? AI age? Like there's just so much happening, right? For 2025, where should businesses be focused on at the start of the year? What are some of the things that they should be focusing on? And what are some of the things they need to be getting right?
I think top two. No, I mean, of course, TikTok is not in the top two for the first time in my life, but maybe that's number three. Let's go top. Let's go top three. Top three. At
Okay.
the very top of my list is data, marketing data, because we're talking about AI and we're talking about personalization and automation and all of those fun things and content velocity and all of these fun things. But none of this is possible without structured data. And I think that is it's a mindset, it's an operating way of working, and it's a skill set, it's a subject matter area. So it's really crucial for marketers to really become, to some extent, data scientists, and yeah, and really understand how to have a data strategy. So I think that at the top of every head of marketing's mind, they should be thinking, what is my data strategy? Not what is my AI strategy? Because your AI strategy can come as a result of your data. Yes, of course, have an AI strategy if your data is in order, but your AI strategy is enabled by an effective structured data layer. And data is supported by a tech stack. And so we now more than ever as marketers we have moved from being tech close to being tech. I think that that marketing is now a tech function, or there's no real way to be a marketer without a very, very solid tech foundation. So top of the list is data. We can talk about it more if you want. Number two is, it's always about asking how consumer behavior has changed. We always have to think about, how has consumer behavior changed? What factors have affected the way consumers consume? What factors have affected the way consumers find you? And in the way that the Netflix algorithm and the Spotify recommendations algorithm changed people's expectation of personalization a few years ago, ChatGPT has changed people's expectation for search. So people are searching for things in a very different way. So search marketing has changed completely. It's changed on its head.
It's changed. Yeah.
completely. Bing has changed, Google has changed, the platforms themselves have changed. So as marketers, we have to have a new search strategy. We have to make sure that we have thought through how are we going to be found when there is an engine that is giving a generated text response as opposed to 10 pages of responses. So consumers will no longer be going through 10 pages to find you. Being on the top 10 isn't good enough. You have to be top 1 or top 3, which means that you have to tailor your marketing communications to be so niche, so connected to the needs of the consumer. So when the consumer is looking for that specific thing that you offer, you're showing up in search.
Yeah.
So you now have to your search strategy has to rethink. And I mean, we could dive into how you could think about that. But that's number 2.
Yeah.
Number 3. So this is the order. And then number 3 is WTF is going on with social. Like this Twitter went crazy when they moved into X. It's like Jekyll and Hyde. So when Twitter became X, organizations needed to ask the question: is this platform in alignment with my values? It has the way this platform has changed still something that I want to represent my brand on. Now I'll tell you the statistics on the content that has happened on X has changed tremendously. The way the conversation has gone is really different to what it is now, to what it used to be. But then Mark Zuckerberg comes online and says to everybody, he's removing fact checkers, and quite specifically says the experience is going to be a little more like X. That is a quote. He said the experience is going to be a little more like X. And then right after saying that, in the US, there is this major situation with TikTok going black for 12 hours. I have to choose my words well. And then returning with an ever so slightly different experience. And so people are reporting having very, very different experiences. We're no longer seeing the wildfires on Twitter. On TikTok. We're no longer seeing Palestine. We're no longer seeing a lot of news. What we are seeing is a lot of Elon Musk. And people are also reporting that there is an integration between TikTok and Instagram. I haven't seen it personally, but I've seen TikTokers talking about it in the States that now share directly to Instagram and vice versa. So what happened technically between Meta and TikTok, I actually don't know. But so the way that content is now happening, the removal of fact checkers, with the switch up in algorithms, we're now having to really dig deep and pay very, very, very close attention to how social has changed, and what it means, and where are we going next, and how are we going to communicate? Because I think the way that the Trump inauguration sort of glorified this network of tech entrepreneurs, of tech founders, it points to what could potentially be the social media now beginning to act the way traditional media has acted for the past few decades, in this sort of networked way. So social media as a whole has changed this month. And
yes.
what I thought to myself today, what I remarked is that in the way that Napster broke the music industry and Facebook broke the traditional media industry, now there has to be something is going to break this, because now social media looks almost exactly the way traditional media looked 20 years ago, with the same types of faces, all in one room, all connected. And so now something has to give. There's going to be a pimple popping soon. And whether we might be working on it, people like Kern Elliott in Trinidad, really one of the best software engineer minds that I know. I expect stuff from people like him to really break through. I expect that type of like a Caribbean super brain to break through this type of scenario and create a new wave of communication in the next few
Yeah.
years. I think that we as marketers and innovative thinkers should be looking out for what comes next. And then, of course, we need to look to China and we need to look to India because there's a lot of tech stuff happening in China and India that's going to bleed into the rest of the world. So we think sort of globally. So top three, data before AI, of course, search, new data strategy, new search strategy, new social strategy. All of them, you have to revisit all three of those strategies.
All.
No. That's where we are. Yeah.
We saw the inauguration, and the people in the front row were very noticeable. And there was a trend. We have a lot of people in Trinidad and Tobago and the wider Caribbean that continue to say things like they're not tech savvy or they're not really dealing up too much with the tech stuff. Can you afford to be in 2025 moving forward, building a business building a business and neglect the digital space, neglect the technology? Can you afford to do that moving forward now?
No, of course not. I mean, the thing about it is what digital is allowing organizations to do and governments to do is to have better security measures for finance, for people, for management of systems and processes. So when we think about how cash is used, for example, yes, we're still very cash dependent on Trinidad, but cash creates an environment where there's a lot of illegal activity that can happen. It creates an environment where a lot of stealing and counterfeit can be taking place. And so moving into a more cashless transaction-based society where things are happening, where money is moving digitally, allows for tracing of money, allows for a lot more legal ways of doing business and trackable ways of doing business. And it also opens the door for more international commerce and being able to do business on an international scale. And in Trinidad and Tobago, our our forex crisis is is
Mhm.
is extreme. It's not funny. It's
Yeah.
not funny.
No, yeah, yeah.
It's extreme. And our ability to move into a space where we could do business outside of Trinidad, do business with different countries and different currencies, it is only enabled by technology. And in Sweden right now, there are many organizations. You go into H&M, for example. You go into that
Yeah.
organization, there's a sign that says cashless. There's no, you have to be able to pay with your with a card or with your phone. To take the bus in Sweden, there are no bus tickets. You have to download an app. Everyone, retiree or not, you download an app and you buy a ticket from that app and there are controllers who walk around and you have to show your phone. Your phone needs to be charged and you have to show that you have a valid ticket on your phone through the app. And I had a chat with my mom today. Hi, mom. And mom was telling me that she bought a ticket to Tobago online. And that's cool. You have to buy a ticket. My
Yeah.
mom is 70 something, mom,
Yeah.
72.
Yeah.
And I'm so pleased to hear that, Tobago, to buy a Tobago ticket. Now, of course, I'm sure it's hybrid. I'm sure you can buy a
Yeah.
ticket with in different places. But that's where the world is moving, and we have to move in that way for security reasons and for growth reasons. We have to. And so we don't really have the luxury. It's basically like saying moving from radio to TV to computers. This is just the flow of the world. So technology is not that it's not that complex, especially when we think about the higher, such a high sophistication of UX design taking place across the world. So
Yeah.
many UX designers are creating interfaces that are simple and intuitive and easy because we are definitely going that way. I saw a news article. I wasn't sure if it was real that Elon Musk came with his robot girlfriend to the inauguration. Did you see that?
I did not. I didn't. But I'm gonna go and Google when we get off.
Yeah, I think he had a female an escort. Anyway, but
Yeah,
the reality is that it's not a nice to have for governments, for security, for data, for transactions. It's something that we need.
yeah,
So yes, and when I teach a class on digital marketing for
yeah,
Nedco. So I've been working with a lot of entrepreneurs in Trinidad, and I express so much, and I teach digital transformation as well.
yeah.
I express so much that you simply cannot operate a business in the absence of technology and effective data management structures. You have to put that in place. And I know I say technology and data management structures, and it sounds a little high level, but in reality, it's just apps. It's just
Yeah,
you have to find the digital tool that works well for you, um, and that stores your data so that you can look back at your bookings and you can have your files in order and those types of things, so that you're not messy, and you can show up as an effective businessman on an international scale or business person.
absolutely. My final two questions before we wrap up is geared towards the next generation. I get a lot of people, and I'm sure you probably get even more people that reach out and they ask, they like marketing, they want to get into the field. What are some of the things that people who want to get into the field and they want to learn the marketing skill set, what are some of the things that you would recommend for those who they have no idea about marketing but they do want to get into the field? What are some of the things you recommend in terms to go out and learn the skill set of marketing?
Yes, I do get that question a lot, and my answer, one of the most tangible and practical things you can do, if you want to be valuable in marketing, is do a Google Skillshop certificate, for example. I think
Mm,
it's super relevant. It's free first to begin with, so you could go on googleskillshop.com or whatever is the website. Just Google Skillshop, and you can learn skills on Google Ads, Google AdWords, video. So you learn a lot of course, Google teaches the foundations of marketing using that technology. And when you
yeah,
come out from a Google Skillshop program, you actually have the tangible skills to be able to book, to plan media and book ads for organizations. And a lot of people, though that hands-on skill, it's so valuable. It's very, very useful. And I think throughout the chain of value in marketing, we always need that type of skill, and it's free to get. So, and then there's Facebook Blueprint and those types of free skills. I think that is a fantastic shortcut into marketing and being able to make money quickly, because you
yeah,
can get a skill that we need. If you
yeah,
have Google, if you're certified in Google Skillshop, message me. I will give you some work, kind of thing. I don't have it,
yeah.
but it's
I
that
almost messaged you like, yeah,
yeah, and that
yeah,
you have that skill set as well, right, Keron? That's in your
yeah,
arsenal. So that
yeah,
that makes that I think that's one of the lowest hanging fruit you can do. And then of course, Keron, as well, I've seen you put out courses, lots of free courses, you've listed on your blogs to upskill yourself in tech. I think you need to learn a lot of the tech conversations. I'm not saying that you have to go and study Python or SQL.
yeah,
I don't think you necessarily have to go down that route, but I think that introduction to tech, so that you understand what is data and how it plays with different tools, and that sort of thing is really useful. And then at the higher level marketing strategy, lots of people ask me about Lockjack, for example, or where is
yeah.
the best place to go and study marketing strategy. Of course, I'm going to say Lockjack. I'm a Lockjack alumni, and
Absolutely.
yeah, and there are Lockjack has a certificate which both Keron and I teach on. And this is, listen, I want to say this: the fact that that certificate was designed to bridge the gap between academia and practical, and literally the biggest stars in marketing in the Caribbean are teaching on this course. I'm so pleased with it, and I'm so proud to be part of it. that you can go and do. I think it's a 16-week course, a 10-week course. It's something like that on
Yeah,
digital.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and you learn everything about digital marketing strategy. And then on top of that, you have the access to the Lockjack network, and you have the ability to have that Lockjack certification on your resume, which we know in the Caribbean and in Europe is super strong and super valid.
Yeah.
Um, I think that if you want to take your career really to another step, that's an opportunity. And then there's the master in marketing, which I did, which is
Yeah.
the foundation for my understanding of strategic marketing. So there are lots of avenues. So you can start free and move yourself up. But I would definitely start with Google Skills Shop, which is something I've done, Keron has done, and many of the people who take marketing very seriously, that's where you really should start.
Absolutely. And those are great suggestions. My final question for you before we wrap is for the people who are looking to apply for jobs, not just in Trinidad, but around the world, or they potentially want to get clients, what is some advice you would give for people that are looking for jobs around the world in marketing or looking to freelance and get clients around the world? Because you've done both at this point.
Yeah. I believe in the personal brand. I
Yeah.
really, really believe in it. I think marketing it's not a new concept. It's not, saying that I'm working in marketing or saying that I'm a marketing subject matter expert is not the same as saying I'm an AI subject matter expert. There are a lot more marketers in the world. And I mean, so that's one thing. But generally speaking, the world, it's a global marketplace. The idea of digital nomads and remote work and moving around is buzzing around the entire world. So
Absolutely.
we are competing with everyone, and we have to be able to put content into the, and Jared Betts Mitchell would really like me to say this. We have to put content out onto our social platforms. LinkedIn is a really great platform to do that, to differentiate ourselves. Because who is Kris as different to someone else? Kris has to be able to put forward his perspective, his social proof. If the fact that I have a lot of followers on LinkedIn, I don't have that many, but the fact that I have a certain community size on LinkedIn demonstrates that who I say I am is validated by the number of people who are connected to me.
Yeah.
And doing things like creating evidence for your work and evidence for your subject matter as part of your personal brand building will set you apart in a global landscape. And that is really important. We can't just send a blank resume halfway across the world and expect to compete with the rest of the world. um,
Facts.
in that space. So if we have the opportunity to create blog content or to create portfolio content or create community content that brings value to your community and demonstrates your subject matter expertise, I think that's so important. That's really a big differentiator. And then I would also say, create an account on Upwork, create accounts on Fiverr. These things are real. These things really, really make a difference. I've worked with so many people on Upwork and Fiverr, and you build relationships with people over time, and for you to just be found in those spaces and understand this is what I do, whether I'm a voiceover artist or whether I can write or whether I can build strategies or if I can design whatever. Allow yourself to be found on Upwork. So I think that combination of things, really creating a digital footprint for yourself that proves who you are, that validates who you are, and that gives a perspective that is unique and differentiates you is super important. But then also ensure that you have some sort of storefront. I'm not saying you have to build a website, but Upwork is an opportunity for you to have that exchange, to have a storefront effectively. And it opens you up to multiple streams of revenue, opens you up to multiple opportunities from different clients. So when I moved from Trinidad to Sweden, I was very much working on Upwork, and I was very and so my income was coming from several different places. So throughout the month, I would be getting different timing with checks and that sort of thing. And that's not what my life is now. Now I'm pretty focused on my corporate job, but it allowed me the flexibility to move because I wasn't dependent on one income. And I think that's the kind of thinking. And right now I personally I'm continuing to try to build my personal brand. I set a real goal and a real intention for myself this year to build a personal brand for myself, to build my LinkedIn community. Follow me on LinkedIn, to build a LinkedIn community, to put out more meaningful content and to let people know who I am and to stand firm. Because as I said at the beginning of this interview, yes, I'm at a nice and comfortable role in a big corporate company, but I'm still laying the foundation for what's coming. And we really have to think of ourselves as building and continuing to be moving forward.
Kris, this was an amazing conversation. I think there was so many nuggets and gems that you dropped today that people needed to hear. And again, the reason I wanted you to come on this program is because I want more people to get that global perspective. We have no shortage of opportunities. Whether you are physically living in Trinidad and tapping into digital opportunities, that can be done. Whether you are building that personal brand and attracting opportunities that take you to different parts of the world, that can be done as well. And you are seeing it happen with a guy like Kris, who has been able to execute, do everything that he has spoken about, and that has led him to make the move over to Sweden. Again, just creating new opportunities. Kris, where can the Digital World family find you online?
On LinkedIn, follow me, add me on LinkedIn. And I'm actually really quite conversational. Lots of students reach out to me and ask me questions and different things. Lots of people ask me about moving to Europe, and I'm quite responsive on LinkedIn. My name is Kris, Kris Granger, Granger. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn. I also have my website, krisgranger.com, where I do some consulting work from time to time. And I'm around. I'm very, very much around the internet. So just Google me or whatever, and I'll be happy to add you to my community.
Lovely. Kris, thank you for taking the time and joining us on Digital World. We definitely got to check in with you at a later date to talk more marketing and again, just life abroad and catch up with you.
Yeah, man, it was my pleasure. Thanks very much, Keron.
Take care, Kris.
All right, bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Kris Granger. We had another amazing conversation. I hope this was really inspiring and eye-opening for you. I think we definitely need to see just more perspectives of Caribbean people doing life abroad, how they are working, how they are adjusting, how they are attracting these opportunities. Because so often we hear that there's just a lack of opportunities in Trinidad. And I hate when I hear that because the reality is there is no lack of opportunities. But are you prepared to tap into the opportunities that exist? Are you able to tap into the digital opportunities? Or are you able to learn the right skill sets, build your personal brand, and attract opportunities that may bring you to a new country? Again, there is no shortage of opportunities, but we have to do our job to put ourselves in the right position for us to succeed. That being said, I need to drink some water. We got Davey back on the keys, and he is going to be taking us to the break where we're going to pay some bills. We'll be back with more Digital World after this.